Good afternoon or good morning, guys and girls. Thanks for joining today's live session where we're going to be editing a shot from our feature photographer, Jennifer Adler, who's part of our Capture Colours campaign and most importantly, the blue section. So if you haven't checked that out, you'll see some of Jenny's shots on our social media pages, and also there's a feature story of her on our website, which we will post up in the comments before we finish up today. So if we flick over to Capture One, we can see what Jenny is all about. Here is Jenny in her natural habitat, just to give you an idea. She's a conservation photographer, works mostly coastal areas, underwater and so on. So we're going to edit one of her fine shots. Now it would have been nice to have Jenny with us, but she lives on a boat. So her internet is actually fairly shocking, so probably not good enough to support a live broadcast. So Jenny has kindly offered to let me edit one of her shots today as well. So what I'm going to do is edit this one, which we can see here. So just check, this is, yep, straight out of camera. I mean, Jenny's hugely experienced, so she tends to get everything pretty spot on out of camera. So this is just a nice exercise in optimizing a few tweaks here and there. And also we're going to build our own style brush as well to correct or just add a bit of clarity where we need it as well. So we'll run through those steps as well. All right, so first of all, let's throw in a crop. So C on my keyboard for the crop tool. And let's, I've got a, 1 second, we've got a ratio set. So let's right click and set that back to unconstrained. Otherwise that's gonna put us in a bit of a mess. So I'm gonna crop to something like that. I'm just gonna cut out the reflection at the top as that's a bit distracting, but go for something around there. And also, as I'm new to it, I forgot to open up the little mouse Bose. So is that working? Yes, it is. So that's good. So that will just help direct you to where we want to have a look at as we go through Capture One. Okay, so in terms of exposure and all those things, it's actually pretty good. As I said, out of camera. Looking at the histogram, it's maybe slightly on the dark side. I don't need to circle, I can do this. So I just want to boost up the exposure a small amount. Now there's already some strong highlights, as you can see on the diver's leg and just on her fin. So I'm a bit hesitant to push exposure up because that will brighten those a little. So let's go with brightness, and that will just lighten up the midtones a touch as well. So don't need to go crazy, but just a small amount. And going down to the levels, let's just hit auto on our levels tool, like so, and that will just pop in the shadow and highlight points and give us a better base contrast setting. Now it's probably overall a bit on the cool side, so I am going to increase the Kelvin. It might be at the expense of the current color tonality in the water, but we're going to fix that in the color editor. So I will bring up the Kelvin just a small amount, and then that's going to help our green underwater plant. Sorry, Jenny, I'm not up on my marine knowledge, but that's just going to help bring those colors a bit brighter and a bit truer, and we can always play around with the sea color as we wish. So let's settle on something like that. Okay, good start. Now in terms of, while we mentioned that, in terms of the color of the sea and so on, not being an experienced underwater photographer myself, I've done a little bit but not a huge amount, but you can often come across obviously the colors being skewed, not looking exactly right, or even if they are right and you just want to add your own creative flair, then the color editor is of course a great way to just tweak the colors to how you see it or how you want them to be visualized as well. So if we go over to our color tool tab, and I'm going to go to the advanced color editor because we might want to control whether we're tackling the whole saturation range or just some of it, but let's take a look. So thinking about the water currently, if I grab our picker in the color editor, and let's just go over to the water, and I'm going to pick around, let's go for, oops, sorry, that was a right click, sticky keyboard. Should we go there? Maybe let's just pick up this color tone. There we go. So now we've got our suggested color range and our exact pick color. Now where I picked, you can see it's almost hovering into the teal side of things. So if we want to make that more blue, then we can play around with the hue slider. Now, if I drag the hue slider all the way to the left, effectively what we're doing is taking our picked color and we're walking it around the circle, and we're heading it up towards the greens, yellows, eventually all the way around to the reds, oranges, and so on. But that will kick that by 30 degrees around the circle, and you can see the effect of the water. Now, if we want to go in this direction, that would be plus 30, and then that will move us towards the blues, purples, and eventually reds if we could get there. So we could go this way if we wanted that look, or we could go this way, and that would blue up our selection if we like. So that's how we started. So if I go a few degrees in this direction, then we're going to get a bit more of a blue tint. We could do the same with the grasses at the front. So if we pick down here, let's go there, and then we pull the hue in that direction, you can see what happens. If we go in this direction, then we're heading those color tones towards the blue. So let's just pull it that way a little touch more as well. Now that's your own creative choice, of course, but loads of possibility in the advanced tab of the color editor tool to specifically highlight those targets, and of course tweak them with the hue, saturation, and lightness sliders. Now, as I did 2 picks, we've got our tweak number 1 here, so if we turn that on and off, we can see what it's doing. Just a very little subtle change. We could also make that a bit darker just to separate out the divers slightly. Then if we go to this one, turn that one on and off, just a slight tweak to our plants as well. So we could also darken those or lighten those, but it's actually pretty good, maybe a tiny few points lighter. There we go. Saw a question from Martin from Austria. Is there a way to change more than one color in the skin tone tab? You would just do it with layers. So really the skin tone tool works best on a layer. So if you wanted to tweak the colors, actually like we did with the red and green photos that we edited on a live session, we actually used the skin tone tool to compress a range of colors into one. So really, Martin, if you want to use the skin tone tool more than once, you can just use it on a filled layer, and that works quite nicely as well. Okay, so we've done our color tweaks. So what do we want to do next? Let's think about this area in the middle. Now it's lacking a little bit of contrast. Obviously the backscatter in the water, we're going to get rid of some of these points later as well. I'd be a bit hesitant to add any more contrast because it might just solid up those blacks a bit too much. Might get away with a few points, or probably what's better if we play around with our shadow and black sliders. If we open up the shadows a touch and pull the blacks down, that actually looks quite nice as well. So that's a good combination of those 2 sliders. Now if we add some clarity, so if we throw up a few points of clarity, it might be quite nice, but the only thing I'm hesitant of is that it could be a bit too strong, especially on the diver and maybe on these darker areas, because it's just putting those maybe a bit too dark. So what we could do, and this is a style brush that isn't included by default, is build ourselves a style brush. So how do we do that? So first of all, we need to make a new filled adjustment layer, and we're going to call that Clarity Plus. Now, if you haven't played with style brushes yet, I'd recommend it. And if you're not really sure what I'm doing right now, don't panic, because we're just building a brush that's, if you like, a preset, which we can then use on any other photo as well. So it will all come to light shortly, don't worry. So I made a new filled adjustment layer. So if I press M on my keyboard, you can see that's covering the whole shot. And let's dial in. I'm going to dial in a relatively healthy amount. Let's do 40 odd points, like so. So it's adding quite a nice effect around here. It's separating out the brighter and darker parts of the water. Maybe a bit too strong in this point, but that's pretty good as an overall adjustment. Let's go a bit stronger than we probably would. So now I need to also set up my brush parameters. So I'm going to right click, make the brush bigger, relatively softer, and also have a nice low flow, like so. So this will be the settings that the brush set to when I subsequently choose this style brush. So now I need to go to my style brushes, and save this layer as a style brush. So let's save this. Now Capture One is asking me what adjustments do I want to have on this. So we want clarity, and we also want to have the brush settings and my eraser settings if I'd chosen to set those up, but I'm linking my brush and eraser, which you'll see shortly. So let's say save. We're going to give it a name, Clarity Plus, and away we go. So now I've got Clarity Plus pops up in my custom style brushes area. So what I'm going to do now is get rid of that layer, and then we can walk through the process of using this new custom brush, which you know, we've got all these built-in style brushes, but I wanted to make a Clarity Plus brush. So if we grab this brush, and then if I switch back to the pan tool, you'll see as soon as I click on my new brush, the brush tool is selected. It's going to be the brush size and settings are now set up to what we saved in that custom brush. And now I can go ahead and brush in my Clarity Plus where I see fit. So I'm just going to do a bit on the C on the left hand side, and then a little bit down here. Now my flow setting is pretty low, it's on 4. So this simply means that the excuse me, the adjustments will build up nice and slowly, because I don't want 45 points of clarity to bang in straight away. We want it to be nice and gradual so we can stop when we think it's getting too much. Now as it's gradual, it might not look like a great deal is happening, but if we turn off Clarity Plus, you can see before and after, especially if you look around this kind of area. So let's turn it off and then back on, and then you can see that change. And then might do a little bit down here, a little bit on those plants, and then stop there. So that's just a small targeted amount of additional clarity. Actually, we can do a bit more in that corner. So there's enough light there for it to not get too muddy and horrible. There we go. Okay, so that's our style brush built, which we can use at any other point. So if we went to a different photo, which I'm not going to do, like if we just went to this shot and we grabbed the same brush, then we could do exactly the same thing and just brush in clarity at the same rate as we did before. So now I've got that brush to use whenever I wish. But let's return to this photo. And as I said, we've got some obvious backscatter or dirt in the well here, and that's kind of distracting because we want it to look like, you know, this deep well of gloom, etc. So I'm going to grab my healing mask brush. Let's go for the first one and just get rid of that. Could probably make my brush a bit smaller, so let's do so. And then we can very quickly just set to work and get rid of some of these more distracting ones. Now I won't go through the whole shot and do all of them because that wouldn't be super exciting for you viewers to watch, but we can get rid of the most annoying ones. And then don't forget, there's no limit to the number of points we can do. So if there is a lot of cleaning up that's necessary, then we can do so. And let's just go fix that crop a little bit. Let's do that. And if there's any other points, I think there was one which was kind of distracting down here. And then there's a little guy over here which tends to stand out, especially if you zoom out. And there's a few other points which, if you weren't watching, as I said, I'd spend a bit more time and clean those up. Now, right now, if you're doing a big cleanup like this, you'll have all these arrows over the photo. A good way to hide those is just move your cursor off the screen and then those arrows disappear, just as a quick tip. Otherwise, if you right click, you can turn off the display arrows button and then they will just completely hide all the time, but it doesn't prevent you taking away other spots. So on work like this, it's highly unlikely that Capture One would not pick a good source point. But if you see a weird result, there's nothing to stop you going back and turning the display arrows back on. You can also set a shortcut key for that, sorry, if that's something you think you're going to be doing a lot, turning those arrows on and off. And as a reminder to edit your shortcuts, it's under Edit Keyboard Shortcuts. And the easiest way to find it, remember what the item is called. So it was called Display. So if I type in Display, you'll see here I've currently got no shortcut for my display, heal and clone arrows, but I could easily choose a key command in there if I wish. But as I said, I find just zipping off to the side anywhere off the main viewer, and then that hides those arrows and it gives you the ability for a quick check. Now if we turn this layer on and off, then we can see before and after. So it's made quite a nice difference to all those dots, scratches and backscatter and so on. Just makes for a cleaner picture. Let's also get rid of, don't know what that is, maybe just other dirt in the sea, bottom of the boat, so we can get rid of those as well. Can always return to dust busting if we need. Oh, never noticed that, there's another diver there. Didn't see that when I was editing originally. I wonder if we could heal her out. Probably not. Shall we risk it and try? Let's see, out of just pure curiosity, if it would work. There's too much going here with the water, to be honest. So, but I wonder if I did that and then moved my selection point over here to try something like that, would it be believable? Tell you what, if I get up my erase brush and just bring the flow down a bit and erase a small amount of that, just so it blends slightly, would that be believable? Let's see. Let's turn the heel layer off. Actually, you know, potentially at a distance, it's not too bad. But because Jenny didn't do that in her edit, let's turn the heel layer back on. And then to get rid of a healing point, it's a good exercise in that. We can just highlight it and press the backspace key and it comes back. All right, did I do anything else in my other edit that I tried earlier? I think almost that was pretty much it. But there's a good question here from Klaus. Why not clean up using the spot removal tool, but instead use the healing brush? You can, Klaus, but to be honest, the spot removal tool has a limit of 99 spots. So if you've got, you know, a shot like this, which has potentially more spots than that, you're going to run out of spots once you get to 99. So that's the first disadvantage. The second disadvantage is that generally the healing brush is more successful and it's not any slower to operate either. And also you've got the benefit of it on a layer as well, so you can turn that layer on and off to track your progress. You can also change the opacity if you want to, not completely remove something but just blend it in a little touch as well. So you know, it's just a more sophisticated tool, to be honest. You've also got the clone option, so if healing isn't doing the job for you, then you've also got the ability to clone as well. And also with the spot tool, it's not picking a source point, it's just looking at the pixels around it. So if you have something which is maybe a little more complex to hide, then 99% of the time the healing brush is going to do a much better job as well. So that just really tends to be my go-to. And also, yes, as I saw Jim said, I forgot about low flow for eraser blending. And also you can see here I've got link my eraser with a brush. So if I change the brush settings, so if I drop brush down to here and then we look at the eraser and right click, then it's exactly the same. So you can flip-flop back and forth between brush and eraser quite nicely and still have the same adjustment settings as well. Bill says, what? I thought 99 was replaced with infinite spot removals. Don't get confused, Bill. That's the spot removal tool is limited to 99. The healing brush is unlimited. So that's why the healing brush is the superior tool in this case. So you might add, why do we still have the spot removal tool? Mostly it's for legacy edits. So if you've edited a shot 2-3 years ago or 2 years ago, because the healing brush has been around for a couple of years now. If you've edited a shot a few years back using the spot removal tool, you'd be pretty annoyed if we'd removed that tool and your ability to edit with the spot removal tool, because then you'd have to go and do all the spotting again. So it's there really for, you know, a legacy point of view as well. So don't panic, Bill. It is infinite in the heel layer. Okay, last thing, if we look at the fin, now it is fairly bright because obviously Jenny's got to expose for the darker water. So we've got 1/25 of a second at f8 at 640. So quite a lot of exposure going on. Obviously the sun blasting through the top has just picked up her leg and her fin. Now if we go to the background and pull down the highlights and the whites, we can get a little bit back, but not a great deal, mostly because we're kind of out of scope for the camera really. And a good way to look at that is if we pull the exposure all the way down, then you can see actually we've got a bit of detail back. So I wonder if we can burn that in. That could be an idea. I actually thought when I first looked at this shot, it's just blown, so there's nothing we can do about it. So let's try with our burn shot if we can actually get a bit of density back into that. So I've chosen my burn style brush, and we're going to have to zoom in a little bit because I don't want any overlap really. So if we just burn a little bit in like so, we can reduce the harshness of that highlight. Now I wouldn't bring it all the way back down to a really dark tone because we'd expect it to be fairly bright because she's getting hit with the full sun's rays, but we can take the edge off it a little bit as well. I'm going to have to clean up my little over stretch at the top there, but we could also take down that highlight on the leg a little bit too. So now if I flick to my eraser or E on my keyboard, then I'll make that smaller, then I can just erase anything I've done there, because we don't want a big halo sticking out from the side of her fin. That would look a bit stupid. And also can just tweak the edge there as well. So if we turn off burn, that's before and after, and that's, let's just check I don't have a halo once more. Do a little bit, so let's just cut into that nicely as well. If you guys weren't watching, I might be a bit more critical, but we are zoomed into 200% as well. So let's zoom back out for reality. If we turn that burn off, tell you what, we go a little bit closer so you can see what's happening. So burn is off, turn it back on. That worked out really well actually. It's just brought a bit more detail back into the fin. The highlight isn't quite as harsh on her leg now. It's a little bit too bright without it, but that's targeted it really nicely. So pretty happy with that actually. Great. All right, let's finish off with a before and after. So if we click on the before and after tool, that's how it came out of camera. Nicely exposed, all the good stuff there that we need. And then it's just the ability of pulling a bit more out of Capture One, playing with the color editor to strengthen this up a bit so it looks a bit richer and more colorful. Our white balance changed, skewed the color, if you like, in the wrong direction with the C, so we could pull that back again. And then we got rid of our backscatter. So if we just bring that over the before and after, lost a bit of the milkiness as well, which is good, and cleaned up the rest of those spots. And also got a bit more detail back in her fin, and her skin tone's looking healthier as well. So let's have a look. Johnny Hill says, can you fix the left lower leg? Left lower leg. It looks atrophied. You know what, Johnny, if I knew what that meant, I'd fix it. But unfortunately, I don't. So left lower legs, that'd be this one. Oh, it's just picking up a little bit of color and so on. We could probably use the skin tone tool. So if we wanted to match her skin tone, we could pick a little section out here and just try and blend that color in as well. But I think she's quite small in the frame. I don't notice it too much. But if we were going for a big print, that would be a candidate for the skin tone tool as well. Jim says, style brushes have changed my life. That's good, Jim. Hopefully in a positive way, not in a negative way, Jim. But it certainly speeds up the editing process. Like if we'd done that normally, then we would have to go through that process each time. So if you remember, I filled the layer, I added the plus clarity, then we would have had to clear the layer and then brush it back in where necessary. This way it just accelerates everything. The burn layer too, that just gave us a really nice speedy way to apply a quick darken on those areas just to take the tone down a little bit as well. Okay, so as I said, don't forget to check out Jenny's story on our website. We'll put the link up in the comments hopefully, but you can also find it on our website under inspiration. So these are some of Jenny's shots, as you can see, all great photographs. So just check out her story, what she thought about Capture One, and learn a little bit about her work as well. There's Jenny not in a wetsuit, so let's also give her some credit for not always being in a wetsuit as well. But there we go. So let's put that photo back on. If you want to see it side by side, let's just do a new variant, not a clone variant, and then we can put those up side by side so you can see the difference too. All right. Last question from Gary. Besides the YouTube channel, are there any good resources you provide for Capture One training? So Gary, if you go to learn.captureone.com, that not only has tutorial videos, but we also list all the tooltips that you can find when you hover around the various interface. So if you just want to watch all those, you can do so as well. There's also blog posts, which often feature inspirational posts with education as well. And there's also the support site. So if you're not a fan of videos, and I know not everyone is, if you go to support.captureone.com, then you've got tons of written information as well, which is all searchable too. So you've got plenty of different resources there, Gary. And also check us out on Facebook and Instagram as well. There's also our Facebook group, Capture One Creative Lab, where you're welcome to post your edits and chat with other like-minded Capture One users as well. Third-party wise, you can also find some things on LinkedIn Learning. There's also a few older Creative Live courses, which I did as well. And there's also content from our ambassadors. So Paul Reifer is a good one to mention, who also goes live every week and edits your photos. So Gary, if you want to see someone else edit your shots, then check out Paul Reifer, sorry, not Reifer, Paul Reifer on YouTube as well. He's one of our ambassadors, so you'll easily be able to find him. Great, thanks for joining today, everybody. If you are interested in learning more about managing your catalogs, then also head over to our Learning Hub. I'm just going to pop in a link as well myself. I forgot I can do it as well. If you head over to learn.captureone.com, you'll see there's a webinar which you can sign up for on Thursday, which is all about managing your catalog. So learn.captureone.com as well, and then sign up for that, and we shall see you on Thursday too. So that's not editing, just about all the database management side of things, all the stuff that we should do, but we don't do. So join me for that on Thursday. Thanks everybody, and good to see you all again. Enjoy the rest of your week and take care. See you soon. Bye now.